Hello, welcome to session 3 of Supporting Siblings. For those that I haven't met, my name's Bree, and it's really encouraging to see our community growing as we continue this important journey together on supporting siblings. As always, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands in which we're joining from today. We pay our respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people joining this webinar today. I'm joining today from the lands of the Murrumarang people on Yuin Nation. I do encourage you to share which lands you're joining from in the chat. So over our first 2 sessions, we've explored understanding the sibling experience and building strong relationships and resilience. Today, we're turning our attention to something that often weighs heavily on both siblings and parents, and that's the role that siblings carry, both now and as they look towards the future. So siblings of children with disability often find themselves carrying big feelings and quiet responsibilities. They may step into caring roles naturally and feel a sense of protectiveness or wonder about what the future holds. These experiences can shape how they see themselves, their place in their family, and their path forward in life. So today's session is the sibling role now and into the future. And it's going to be an exploration of how siblings experience their role and how we can support them to thrive while honouring their own unique identity and aspirations. We again are joined by Shannon. Thanks for being here, Shannon. Shannon's the Chief Executive of Siblings Australia. And she's going to do a little bit of a presentation that tackles some of the complex and important questions that families face. And Shannon has been leading Siblings Australia for 2.5 years and brings both professional expertise and personal insights. So yes, you understand these challenges from multiple perspectives. Things like, how do we balance caring responsibilities between siblings? How do we help siblings establish healthy boundaries while maintaining close family bonds? How do we encourage each child's unique identity when one sibling need more attention than the others? And I think a question that's on many parents' lips is, how do we talk about the future in ways that are honest, age appropriate, and hopeful? So we're going to explore some practical strategies for balancing those everyday caring between siblings, supporting healthy boundaries within relationships, encouraging each sibling's unique sense of self, having those open conversations about the future, and supporting siblings to pursue their own goals, education, and independence. So I'm not going to talk anymore because no one's here to hear me. They're here to hear you, Shannon. So I'm going to hand it over to you, and I'll touch back in at the end if there's any questions.
Thanks so much, Bree. Now let's see if I can make this presentation work. Bree and I were discussing earlier that I'm not so great on the tech, so we'll see how we go. Here we are. Okay, so Nina Mani, I'm joining you from the lands of the Kaurna people on the Adelaide Plains today. As Bree said, I'm the Chief Executive of Siblings Australia, and I'm also the mum in a blended family. I brought 2 of my own kids into our marriage, blending with my husband's too. So all in all, we've got 2 sons and we've got 2 daughters. And our 2 daughters are 6 months apart in age and a world apart in terms of how they interact with the world. My stepdaughter is autistic, she has an intellectual disability, is nonverbal, and she has behavioural issues. Sibling dynamics are something very front of mind in our household. And so for parents listening in today, I hear you and I see you. When a child is diagnosed with a disability, developmental delay, or chronic illness, it affects the whole family, including siblings. While most services and supports focus rightly on the needs of the child with the diagnosis, it's important that we understand the experience of their brothers and sisters. From a young age, siblings begin to make sense of their place within the family and the world around them. They observe how time, attention, and expectations are shared. They notice differences and often take on unspoken roles to maintain harmony or to ease the load on parents. For children under 8, these patterns are still forming. It's a crucial stage of identity development and a time when children are learning who they are in relation to others. For siblings, this can mean wrestling with big feelings, love, pride, and protectiveness, but also confusion, resentment, or guilt. Sometimes they can feel pressured to be the easy child or take on caring responsibilities well beyond their years. As parents, there's so much we can do to help young siblings build a strong, healthy sense of self. That includes creating space for open conversations, supporting them to express their feelings, encouraging their unique interests, and helping them to form positive, balanced relationships with their brother or sister. It also means thinking ahead, planting seeds now for how their role might grow and shift over time, and showing them that their own goals and needs are just as important as those of their brother or sister. Today's session is about understanding that sibling experience, not to add pressure to already stretched families, but to offer small, practical ways to support all of your children to thrive now and into the future. From a very young age, children begin to make sense of who they are in the world and within their families. They notice how others interact with them and how intentions and care is shared, and what behaviours are praised or discouraged. For siblings of a child with disability, developmental delay, or complex health needs, these early impressions can shape not only their own interests and experiences, but also the role they perceive they play in relation to their brother or sister. For these siblings, identity is often quietly influenced by family dynamics and unspoken expectations. A child may start to see themselves as the helper, the one who doesn't make the fuss, the peacekeeper, or even the one who has to stay strong. This can happen without any explicit instruction, just through repeated experience. We often hear things like, "I help mum when he's upset," or "I don't mind missing out because she needs it more." "I try to be good so there's less stress." And while all of these statements may seem mature or generous on the surface, they also reveal something deeper. They show how siblings can begin to internalise certain roles or responsibilities. And without support, these ideas can harden into identity, shaping how a child sees themselves and how they believe they are valued in their family. Sometimes these roles are embraced willingly. Some children are naturally empathetic, and stepping into a caregiving or supportive role is one they do with pride. But even then, it's important to ask, are they also being supported to explore their own needs, wants, and individuality? Are they learning that their worth isn't tied only to being helpful or easy? Other times, siblings may feel overlooked or burdened. They might notice that their sibling requires more attention, or that family routines revolve around therapy appointments, medical needs, or behaviour management. Even if they don't have the words for it, they may feel resentful, sad, or lonely, and then they feel guilty of feeling that way. These conflicting emotions are completely normal, but without validation, children may push them down, believing they are wrong to be feeling upset or angry. Excuse me. That's why it's so important, especially in early childhood, to create a foundation for healthy identity development. This means recognising and supporting siblings, not only in their role within the family, but as whole people with their own personalities, interests, challenges, and dreams. So what can parents do to help? You can name and affirm their identity outside of their sibling role. Give them feedback that highlights who they are as individuals, their quirks, talents, and things that light them up. For example, you might say things like, "I love the way you are so focused when you're building with Lego. You have such a creative brain. You're so thoughtful. I really enjoyed that story you made up today. I can't wait to hear the next one." These sorts of affirmations help siblings feel seen for more than just how they fit into their family's needs. You need to create space for emotional honesty. Young children need to know it's okay to feel more than one thing at once. They can love their sibling and feel frustrated. They can want to help and need a break. This is just being human. And simple phrases can help. You're allowed to feel that way. It's okay to be upset. Sometimes things are hard, but that doesn't mean you don't love your brother. Letting children voice these emotions without judgment builds emotional literacy and a sense of safety. You can help them to support a healthy self-concept. Pay attention to how they talk about themselves, especially when it relates to responsibility of worth. If a child says, "I'm the one who helps when mum is tired," you might gently reframe it. "You do help, and I'm really grateful, but it's not your job to take care of everything. It's okay to play, to rest, to just be a kid." A common phrase in our house is it's a parent's job to look after kids. It's not the kids' job to look after parents. I chose to bring you into this world and you didn't choose to be here. One of us chose this, so that's the person who has the job. Over time, this reinforces the message that they are valued for being themselves, not for carrying others. Celebrate your sibling child's unique interests and strengths. Whether it's arts, sports, storytelling, or imagination, nurture what makes them feel joyful and confident. Where possible, carve out one-on-one time, even if short, to focus on their world. My stepson is mad for sports, and so my husband utilises support workers to make sure they attend matches every so often, just the two of them, just away from our everyday. Encourage open conversations about the future. Even young children may wonder about what happens when they grow up. You don't need to have all the answers, but be open to these conversations in age-appropriate ways, and that will help them feel safe and secure. You can say to them, as you both grow up, things will change. We'll talk about how to make sure everyone gets the support they need, including you. And I'll come back to this concept a bit more in more detail later in the presentation. Watch for signs of over-identification or emotional load. If you notice your child is saying things like, I have to be strong, or I'm the one who keeps things calm, or I can't ask for anything, these might be signs that they're internalising too much responsibility. They may benefit from reassurance that they are not expected to carry emotional or practical burdens beyond their age. Siblings begin shaping their identities early. They absorb cues from their environment, their relationship, and the way their family operates. When those cues tell them they are valued only when they're being helpful, quiet, or self-sacrificing, it can limit their sense of self. But when those cues also affirm their individuality, emotions, and needs, children can grow into confident, caring, and resilient individuals, not defined only by their sibling role, but enriched by it. As parents, your support in this area doesn't need to be perfect. Even small shifts in language, attention, and presence can make a lasting difference. Siblings of children with disability or developmental delay often demonstrate extraordinary empathy and care from a young age. Many of them want to help, not because they're told to, but because they love their brother or sister and see how their family works. This kind of care can build strong bonds and a deep sense of connection, and we don't want to take that away. But we do want to help siblings find balance so they can grow up feeling supported, not responsible. So what does normal sibling care look like in early childhood? It might be fetching a toy, helping explain the rules of a game, or noticing when their sibling is becoming overwhelmed. These are beautiful moments of connection, and they can help build emotional intelligence, patience, and kindness. They often become proud parts of the sibling relationship. But sometimes these caring behaviours extend into something more complex. Some siblings start to step into caregiving roles beyond their years, not because they're being explicitly asked to, but because they feel like they should. They sense when a parent is stressed or quietly trying to keep things calm. They avoid asking for help or attention because they know their siblings' needs are greater. They may even lay awake worrying about meltdowns, medical emergencies, or what the future might hold. This early emotional labour can be hard to spot, especially when a child seems well behaved, mature, or no trouble. But over time, it can impact their mental health, identity development, and even educational outcomes. They may struggle with anxiety, perfectionism, or low self-worth, believing that their role in the family is to make life easier for others. So it's not about stopping siblings from helping, and far from it. Instead, it's about making sure they're also being helped, that they're given permission to just be kids, and that their kindness and empathy isn't mistaken for adult readiness. So check in with your kids with curiosity. Ask open-ended questions like, what do you notice about your brother or sister when they get upset? How do you feel when that happens? This gives siblings space to reflect on their experiences without assuming they're always comfortable with them. Gently redirect caregiving roles. When a child steps in to help during a tricky moment, thank them, but also let them know that you've got it covered. Thanks for jumping in, but I've got this one for now, can do the trick. This reinforces the idea that their contribution is appreciated but not expected. Acknowledge their efforts, but reduce the load. Some simple phrases like, you're such a kind person, I love how much you care. It's also okay to rest. It's not your job to fix everything, that's a grown-up's job. Other sorts of comments that validate their feelings while giving them the freedom to just be a child. Create that space for them to just be themselves. Give them opportunities where they don't have to think about anyone else, whether that's solo play, one-on-one time with a parent, or activities that are completely their own. This helps build a sense of self that isn't always entwined with with being helpful or good. As siblings grow, they begin to absorb subtle messages about what is expected of them, not just now, but into the future. They hear conversations, see how responsibilities are divided, and notice when their own needs are being deferred. Sometimes this leads to them to develop unspoken beliefs. I'll need to take care of my sister when I'm older, or I can't move far away because of my brother, or my parents are counting on me. These beliefs can form surprisingly early, even in children under 8. That's why it's important to start talking about boundaries and the future gently, gradually, and in age-appropriate ways. But what are boundaries in early childhood? That word might feel really grown up for little kids. The concepts themselves are completely accessible. Young children are capable of understanding it's okay to say no sometimes, or you're allowed to want your own time, or you're not in trouble for needing space. Boundaries are simply the way we teach children to understand where they end and another person begins, emotionally, physically, and practically. For siblings, learning boundaries is essential to help them grow into adults who can love and support their brother or sister without losing themselves in the process. So, what about the future? It's natural for families to think ahead, but we need to be mindful of the messages we send, even unintentionally. Telling a child, one day you'll be the person to take care of them, or you'll be the one to look out for them when we're gone, can feel overwhelming. It can create a sense of pressure that follows them into adolescence and adulthood. Instead, the goal is to open a door to the future without locking them into a specific role. Let them know the family will work it out together over time, that plans can change and that they have choices. You might say something like, "We don't know everything yet, but we'll keep talking about it," or "You'll always be their sibling, but that doesn't mean you have to do everything." As parents, we can model healthy boundary setting in our own lives. Children learn from what they see. Say things like, "I need a quiet moment right now. I'll come back and I'll help you in a minute." Or, "I love helping grandma, but I also need time for myself," are examples that teach kids that caring and self-care can go together. Drawing on my own life again very quickly here, we've got a situation where we're very much the sandwich generation, in that I have got a father who's very unwell, and I do a lot of the caring for him, and then we've got my stepdaughter who has very complex needs in the house, and I very clearly try to model for my kids sometimes mum just needs to have a step back and have a bit of time to herself, and I am hoping that that is modeling that sort of really good behaviour for them about setting those boundaries. Normalise the idea that everyone's future is different. Share simple stories, whether from books, videos, or real-life examples, about people with disabilities living independently, accessing support, or having relationships of their own. This will help shift the narrative from "they will always need you" to "they will grow, and so will you." Support all your children to develop independence in their own way. Help your child with disability build life skills as they grow, and encourage the sibling to pursue their own interests and explore their individuality. When both children are supported to thrive, it's easier for the sibling relationship to be one of connection, not obligation. The sibling relationship is one of the most enduring of a person's life. Siblings will be there long after we're gone as parents. When nurtured with care and understanding, it can be a powerful source of connection, strength, and shared history. But for siblings of children with disability or developmental delay, the path through that relationship can be more complex, shaped by love, pride, and protectiveness, but also responsibility, worry, and at times self-silencing. Supporting siblings isn't about taking away their connection or discouraging their empathy. It's about expanding their understanding of themselves, giving them space to grow, and helping them feel seen, not just for how they care, but also for who they are. Every family is different, but there is no one size fits all approach. The dynamics within your family will be shaped by personality, needs, culture, values, and life circumstances. But there are some common threads we can see across sibling experiences: a developing sense of an identity, a deep desire for connection, and a growing awareness of what the future might hold. These themes often emerge early and continue to evolve over time. By recognising and responding to these threads In age-appropriate, compassionate ways, families can lay the groundwork for long-term well-being. When siblings are supported to understand their feelings, to have a voice, to form boundaries, and to build a strong sense of self, they are more likely to thrive. They are better equipped to form healthier relationships, pursue their own goals, and remain connected to their brother and sister in ways that feel sustainable and positive. Importantly, none of this requires perfection. You don't need to have all of the answers. There is no perfect script for what to say or when. What matters most is staying open and staying curious. Letting your child know they can come to you with questions, worries, or frustrations, and that those conversations are really, truly welcome. Often it's the invitation to talk, not the outcome of the talk, that makes the difference. If your child says something you don't know how to respond to, it's okay to say, "That's a really good question. I don't have the answer yet, but I'm glad you asked, and let's work together to work it out." That sort of honesty, it builds trust with you and your sibling child. Ultimately, supporting siblings is about helping them grow into whole people, people who love and value their brother or sister, but also feel entitled to their own time, their own dreams, and their own identity. It's about holding the sibling relationship as something meaningful without letting it define the whole child. And it's about making short, small, steady choices every day that say, "You matter too, we see you, and we're in this together." When we support siblings as part of a loving and balanced family system, we give them the best possible start, not just as brothers or sisters, but as individuals who can carry their empathy and insight into the world with confidence and care. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, Bree. And if anyone has any questions that we want to go to.
We do. We actually have two questions that have come through. Actually, a few, they're all coming in now. But one of the questions was just around, like you've mentioned some really great tips and advice. Is there an actual resource that, lists these tips and resources that you're saying? Or is that something that's probably covered? I'm thinking it might be covered in the Sib Wise program for parents.
Yeah, SibWise is probably the best place for that. There may be times where you're sort of looking at it and thinking, as a family, we need some additional support there. We've got our SIB support program as well, which is that family or individual counselling. But I would absolutely recommend SibWise as the first step
Yeah.
for
Do you want to
that.
just give a little bit of an insight into what SibWise is for
Yeah,
those that
sure.
might not have heard any of the previous sessions?
Yeah, sure. Just give me a chance to have a sip of my tea.
I have to say, I did resonate with everything that you were saying, and particularly around that role. And I know next week we're talking about, that school and some of the issues that come up there. But I know for me, with my daughter, when my son, she's 2 years above him, and when he started school, she felt this massive responsibility that she had to go and check on him.
Yeah.
And will the teachers come and see me? And we're like, no, that's not your role. Like, there's people employed at the school to be with him. Like, you don't have, you can obviously go up and check on him and say hello if you want, but you do not have to. Like, really having to unpack that with her. But yes, now you've had your drink. Tell us a bit more about Sibwise.
Yeah, so Sibwise is an online tool for parents and professionals. It takes about 2 to 3 hours to run through, and what it does is it goes through a whole series of scenarios for the adult people in the sibling child's life to sort of break down what are some of those things that they might be thinking, what are those things that they might be worrying about, and effectively putting yourself in the sibling child's shoes and thinking, okay, well, if I was here, how would I feel about this? And giving some guidance around that sort of thing. We are talking about the school situation next week, so I won't go into it in too much detail. But that is something that we hear constantly from parents, and a lot of time it's actually the parents have put pretty good parameters around their sibling child, but then school is jumping in and saying, "Hey, can you just come over?" And
Yeah.
and so we've got this whole bit of advocacy work too that we have to do with schools around. No, the siblings need to be able to just go to school and just do their own education. But yeah, it's absolutely all kids, when their brother or sister starts school beneath them, wants to make sure they're okay. But when there is that additional layer of complexity, we need to make sure that they are just getting the chance to be themselves at school and not just the big sister or the big brother.
And I think it is about having those conversations. And I just, for us on the flip side, like we're like, no, it's not your role to help your brother at school. But then when we were developing some of the healthcare plans around his seizures, she's like, can I be part of it? Like she actually wanted to be part of it. She wanted to be notified if he did have to go in an ambulance or if he did have to go home. So we also had to honor that and respect that she needed to be involved. She didn't want to hear from someone in the classroom at lunchtime that Dax has gone home. So yeah, it's a balance though, isn't it?
It's a balance, but it's about having that conversation with her about what do you want to know, not
Yeah.
just saying to her, okay, I need you to go and check on Dax every recess and lunch or what have you. It's about her having her own agency to say, this is
What I
what
want.
I want. And, you know, we know in all sorts of settings. I talk to so many families where we're talking about therapies and what have you. And I'm like, well, have you spoken to the sibling child about, well, no, because they're just a child. But they often know their brother or sister so much better than we know our kids as parents because they have got that really sort of horizontal relationship. And, you know, the child who's got a disability is probably going to tell their brother or sister a lot more honestly about how they're feeling about how things are going than they're going to tell mum and dad, who they're like, oh God, you know, I know mum and dad are feeling a bit snowed under because they're having to take me to all of these things. So I can't say that I don't actually think it's helping, but they might say to their brother or sister. So, you know, there are spaces and places that it's really appropriate, but we really need to honour that sense of agency, and we really need to make sure that siblings aren't feeling that they have to be part of it if
Yeah.
that's not where they need to be. Yeah.
We do have another question as well. And it's just if there's any advice for supporting a young person who has a disability, who is supporting their sibling who has higher support needs,
Yeah.
and they're just wanting to ensure that they feel safe to access supports where there is a positive view of disability as they have disabilities themselves.
Look, we are very conscious of that at Siblings Australia, that oftentimes the siblings that we are supporting, when we say siblings, we're talking about the person who has less support needs. So, yeah. So we refer to brothers and sisters when we're talking about the person who has higher support needs. The sibling child is the one who has the less support needs. But because of how a lot of these things present, we're very aware that they can there can be siblings who need assistance who may also have their own disability. We very much try to frame it in that way. There may be certain programs that we know that organisations are running that, you know, for example, are supporting a group of children who have got brothers or sisters who have high support needs levels of autism, and it might be an autistic child that is the sibling that we're looking to support. So we might not recommend they go to that particular group because, you know, everyone needs to be able to have their own truth in that space, and that might be a bit tricky. So we'll try and balance that out, but no, very conscious of the fact that the sibling child may have their own support needs as well. And it's not about, there is, what we talk about is the issues can be complex. The person isn't complex. It's the issues that surround their support that can be complex. So, yeah, very much happy to support sibling children who have their own support needs as well.
We've got two other quick questions. One just around when do you know whether the sibling might actually require that more professional support? Obviously due to what's going on, like emotions and feelings, and obviously the parents try not to project their concerns too much or medicalize the sibling child, but they're worried about them growing up having resentments and feeling like that they haven't protected them enough from certain complex behaviors.
Yeah. That's the $1,000,000 question, isn't it, as
I
parents?
know.
Like,
It's like,
when is
what
it?
point? Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I think this is very much my personal advice here is go with your gut. You know your child best, and if you're looking at them and thinking, oh, I think this is sort of outside of what I can do, and it might be professional assistance you need, or it might just be I need my village to step in a bit more here. And I speak about this quite regularly, is sort of knowing those other adult people in your child's life who they're perhaps more comfortable to have those conversations with than they are when there is that complexity within your house. Like I said at the start, we're a blended family. And so when there are some things that get a bit tricky in this house, I might contact my kid's dad and say, hey, can you just have a conversation with them about how they feel about this? Because I'm not sure that they're going to be as open with me as they might be with you in this situation. Perhaps it's a best friend that you've got, or an uncle or an auntie who can step in and have a conversation with them. The other thing that I think is really important when you're sort of trying to gauge where your sibling child is, how they're traveling emotionally, is I often hear people say, oh, I went and spoke to them about how do you feel about what's going on with your brother or sister? And then it becomes another space where it's just about the child who's got those additional needs. Saying to them, how are you going, and talking to them about their life might actually unpack some of that stuff in a bit more of a deep and authentic way. But yeah, trust your gut, use the other adults that you've got around you. And I am wholly in favour of, it's probably best to err on the side of caution with these things. And if you think maybe they need some additional support, then if you're in a position where you're able to, try and access that, whether it's through school counsellors, whether it's through private avenues, and normalise that looking after your mental health is as important as looking after your physical health at a young age. I think that's a really important lesson for kids to take on as well.
Absolutely. And I'll just do one more question because there's sort of been two that have asked around this. Support for teenagers.
Yes.
It works is that 8 to 12-year-olds. What is there for that, next age group?
Next age group. Okay, so we have got a Discord server. For those of you who don't know, Discord is a social media platform, but it's one that's got a whole range of different supports in place. So every teenager who's part of our Discord server has to go through a verification process with Siblings Australia staff. All of the chat rooms are moderated. They're auto-moderated, but then they're also physically moderated by our staff as well. We have got we'll partner with organisations in different places at different times to run in-person events for teenagers, and we're looking at potentially starting some school groups in the near future for teens. As all of us who have teenagers in their houses know, and I've had one of those mornings this morning, that getting teens to actually talk about what's going on with them isn't necessarily the easiest thing to do. But we've found that when teens do come along to those support groups and realise that they're not the only person going through this, that can be really, really powerful for them.
Yep. And so for families to find the Discord stuff, they can find that through the website, or is there a
Absolutely. So if you just
register
register on our website for that. And if I could ask that parents get their teenagers to actually register, because that verification process that we go through with age checks and stuff, the verification process is a very quick and easy. You jump online with me or one of my staff for 2 minutes. I can see you and talk to you and see that you are, Jodie 14 from Glebe rather than Shannon 45 from Shadow Park. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. There are a few other questions, but I'll include them in our resource at the end because I'm mindful of the time. But thank you, Shannon, so much again. I'm loving these presentations. I'm loving these series. Yeah, so I hope everyone that's watching is taking away maybe a little bit more clarity about how to approach some of these delicate conversations about the future, and some strategies for supporting each of your children to develop their own identity while maintaining those loving bonds and that make our family strong. So we are sort of moving into the final stretch of our Supporting Siblings series. I have shared the link to our next session in the chat, but we've got 2 more to go. So far we've covered understanding the sibling experience, building relationships and resilience, and obviously the complex topic of sibling roles and a little bit about that future planning. Our remaining sessions will continue to provide you with practical tools and deeper insights. So for those who have registered, you will receive today's recording and any of those resources that we've mentioned, and also information about the upcoming sessions. And I think it's just really important, and I think you've said this as well, Shannon, throughout today, is just to remember that every family's approach to these questions will be different. There's no perfect formula, but there are thoughtful ways to approach these conversations and decisions that honour everybody's needs and futures. So thank you everyone for joining us today and for your commitment to supporting all your children to thrive. The care you're taking to think through these complex issues is creating stronger families and brighter futures. So we look forward to seeing you in our next session. Thank you again, Shannon. We'll be seeing you in our next session as well. But yeah, I think everyone just please be gentle with yourselves as you continue these important conversations. And remember that supporting siblings to have their own dreams is one of the greatest gifts that you can actually give your whole family. So thank you, everyone. Have a lovely week, short week after a long weekend. And we'll see you same time next week, Tuesday.
Thanks, Bree. Bye.
Thanks, Shannon. Thanks everyone for watching.